Yo, 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 what is going on? It is the Crazy Writer right here, right now, back with chapter 21 of my Invader Zim fanfiction. I wonder where the plot of this story could possibly go from here. Well, let's find out. So sit back, relax, and enjoy it all, right here, right now. Chapter 21. Point It Out. Tonight was a Dib night for me, so I walked home with him and Gaz. Dib ordered some pizza for dinner. Not that I had any, of course. I just went rat hunting like I usually do. The membranes don't really care if I bring dead animals in the house, as much so long as I clean up whatever mess I make and don't get anything in the professor's science equipment. Zim has the same rules. I ate on the floor under the table while the other two enjoyed their pizza above me. Gaz, Dib was asking, do you think I should try a different style for my hair? I mean, I've had the same pointy cowlick thing for 11 years now. I think you should try a different style of communicating, like maybe silence, Gaz said with all her charm. I'm serious. Dib hardly took his sister's threats and comments so seriously. I guess that's how he got such tough skin when it comes to dealing with everyone calling him crazy. What do you think, Liz? He looked under the table at me. I raised my head from my rat meal and looked up at Dib. Dib hair unique. Keep same. You're right, Liz. Dib smiled down at me and rubbed my head. That's why you're my best friend. I smiled as he scratched my head and returned to eating. After dinner, Dib and I went outside to play fetch with a ball, while Gaz stayed inside to game. I've been thinking a lot lately, Liz, Dib said with his eyes somewhat down. You spend an awful lot of time at our house. Way more than your foster parents' house. Uh-huh. I nodded as I dropped the small ball at his feet. Dib picked up the ball and bounced it between his two hands as he spoke. Well, you're like a family dog here, Liz. Heck, you're more than that. He threw the ball and I ran after it. You're really one of the family, and I was wondering if you maybe wanted to move in with us. I had picked up the ball in my mouth again, and was now staring at Dib. I held the ball in my teeth while watching him wait for me to answer. His head was tilted down, but his eyes watched me. He rubbed one arm with his other hand, nervously. I lowered my head and dropped the ball at my paws before taking a step towards Dib. Why? I finally said in a near whisper. Why? Dib repeated to confirm that's what I said. Well, since you last ran away, I've been worrying about you, Liz. When I don't know where you are or anything, I have to hope that you're not trying to leave again. I really don't want to lose you like that again. He scratched the back of his head and laughed nervously. I guess I just really want to make sure that you're always safe. I took a few steps closer to him. Where would I sleep? Dib raised his head excitedly and started talking quickly as if me asking this was me saying yes. Oh, wherever you want, Liz. You could sleep in Gaz's room at the foot of her bed, or Dad's room at the foot of his bed, or at the foot of my bed. He grinned bashfully after saying that. I silently raised an eyebrow and stared at him some more. When I said nothing, he shrugged and looked down. Or, somewhere else if you like, he mumbled. I still said nothing as I was thinking about what this would all mean. This would truly make me part of the Membrane family. Would I finally be able to have a real last name instead of just Liz Wolfe? Liz Membrane. Elizabeth Membrane. It doesn't sound too terrible. I'd definitely be able to protect them better if I was sleeping in their house instead of so far away. But then I'd be farther away from Zim. I'd still spend many evenings at his house, but then I'd have to leave earlier for the longer walk home. I wouldn't be surprised if Dib would try to forbid me from going to see Zim at his house altogether. He was so protective of me, and I was so protective of him. Look, Dib thrust his hands forward when I still didn't answer. I've seen your foster parents. They don't care about you at all. I know our family may not be perfect, but we do care about you. It's not just me, but Gaz likes you too, better than most people, and that's saying something. Remember when you broke your leg? My dad dropped everything he was doing to find you a cure. I don't even know if he'd do something like that for me, his own son. But for you, he didn't hesitate. Dib shrunk the space between us and sat on his legs so that he was at my level. Don't you see? You're one of us, Liz. You belong in this family. You want me to live with you? I finally asked. That's right, Liz. Dib nodded quietly. I heard you talked with Gaz about it, and she said she don't care. I asked Dad, and he thinks it's a good idea. What do you say? I think about, I said after a brief pause. Yeah, of course, Dib almost shouted. Take all the time you need. I know it's a big decision and a big change. But hey, it can't be that big of a stretch as going from living with wolves to living with people. That's true, I agreed. I turned back and nudged the ball towards Dib. Let's get back to the game. Yeah, okay. Dib chuckled and picked up the ball. About a half hour later, we went back inside to get ready for the next installment of Mysterious Mysteries. Gaz was on the couch and Dib sat on the other end of the couch. I curled up on the middle cushion as usual with my head next to Dib's leg. Did you ask her yet? Gaz asked Dib. Yeah, she says she's gonna think about it, Dib answered her. What's there to think about? Gaz looked down at me. Who would actually want to live here with my stupid brother? Gaz! Dib shot a look at his sister. You're not helping. She glared back at her brother and continued with her game. I smiled up at Dib and he smiled back down at me, before starting to pet my back just the way I liked. Mysterious Mysteries came on and it was the same old story about some Bigfoot sighting somewhere. After the show ended and Dib finished up explaining his theories to me, I decided it was time to walk home. Gaz and Dib went to get ready for bed and I headed outside and started down the street. I then heard and felt thunderous footsteps approaching. I looked towards the source to see a hovering Zim out of his disguise. There were some tree branches surrounding him and a large cord attached to what looked like nothing. Gur was trailing behind in his dog outfit. Prepare yourself for the end, Dib, Zim shouted at the house behind me. Dib ran out of the house and stopped next to me to see Zim. I've put up with you long enough, Dib, Zim continued. Now, fight an enemy you cannot see. Dib pointed at Zim. You're right there. What? Zim tried to move to the side. There! I pointed up at him. Your mighty Irken cloaking device cloaks the robot, but not you. Dib explained what Zim clearly couldn't see. Lies! Zim shouted. Now behold the Doom Cannon! Where? I asked. Yeah, it's invisible, Dib said. But you can see me? Zim asked us. That's what I said, Dib confirmed and I nodded. Oh, that's stupid, Zim said to himself. Really stupid, Dib responded. You dare agree with me? Zim shouted accusingly. Prepare to meet your horrible doom! No, no, no! I shouted up to Zim as he started pressing invisible buttons. I stood on 2 feet and ran toward Zim, trying to stop him from whatever he was trying to do. However, I didn't really have to do anything. Warning! Power draw critical! The machine warned and started shorting out. The entire city then blacked out and the cloaking device turned off to reveal the large robot thing. Chicken! Gur pointed and giggled. I'm gonna eat you! I backed away from the machine as Dib pulled out a camera to start snapping pictures. I tried to snatch the camera away from Dib, but he kept it well out of my reach. I then noticed the lens cap was on and quickly gave up the fight. Crop Circles magazine's gonna put me on the front cover, Dib was saying excitedly. Somebody take one with me standing next to it. Since I clearly wasn't going to help Dib expose Zim, plus I didn't really know how to use a camera, Dib handed the camera to Gur and began posing in front of the machine. Aww, Gur mused. You look so cute. I shook my head at the situation. No, Gur, no! Zim shouted from inside the robot. Security compromised. Must self-destruct. Zim launched himself out the back of the machine, which started counting down from 5. Dib and I ducked behind Gur, with Dib holding his precious camera. The robot blew up and debris was flying everywhere. I rose when the explosion ended to see Zim take the camera from Dib. Victory! Zim cried while holding the camera above his head. What do you mean, victory? Dib stood up and asked Zim. Your robot exploded and you didn't destroy me. It was a trick! Yes, Zim responded. My plan was to steal this camera from you so that you couldn't show these pictures. Ha! Dib tackled Zim and started wrestling him for the camera. Since I knew the camera was useless with the cap on, I had no reason to take sides here, so I just watched these boys wrestle about like pups. Zim bounced the camera around in his hands and Dib finally grabbed it. Victory for Earth! He shouted with the camera in the air. Dib! I shouted to him from beside Gur. Yes, Liz? Dib grinned back at me. Camera cap's still on, you know. Dib looked at the camera. It is not, Ah! Zim ran a few feet down the block as I laughed. Victory! Victory for Zim! A giant piece of the robot then landed on top of Zim. I ran towards the spot and started digging under the giant robot part. I'm going back to bed, I heard Dib say to himself behind me. I continued digging, but it seemed to be taking too long. Grr! I cried to the robot dog over my shoulder. Come help Master out! Gur ran over, and together we eventually got Zim out. I am Zim! He screamed as he stood on his feet. Come, I nudged Zim. I walked Zim home. The three of us started walking back to our neighborhood. Stupid, unsuspecting Dib human, Zim was saying. Zim, I interrupted. I have to tell you something. What is it, Liz? Zim said down to me. Can't you see I'm trying to convince myself that this was a victory for Zim? It about Dib, I told the Irkin. He asked me move in with him. Zim stopped in his tracks and his eyes grew to the biggest I'd ever seen them. What? How dare he? That little corn-eating human! Zim was punching at the air in a rage and stomping the ground when he finally turned to me. You told him no, didn't you? I told him I think about it, I said to Zim. What is there to think about? Zim shouted to the sky. He's a horrible little human that does horrible little human things. Why, if you lived with the Dib, you would be farther away from Zim. I know, I bowed my head. I'll tell him no. Good, Zim growled. That filthy little human will pay if he thinks he can get you all to himself. What's Zim mean? I tilted my head. Zim's eyes went wide for a second. Nothing. You didn't hear anything. Zim pointed at me. Right, I responded, and we continued walking. And how was that? Not a bad one, right? I kinda liked it. If you liked it enough too, then I guess I'll see you in the next video. If you didn't like it, then you probably left already and I have got no reason to be talking to you. I will see the rest of you little darlings next time, and remember, keep your crazy.